The lies women tell men and what they actually mean. Psychology tips. The truth is rarely spoken outright in love, but it's always revealed in behavior. Let's drop the illusions and talk man to man. Most men listen carefully to what a woman says, yet miss what she's actually communicating. Her words might sound clear on the surface, but her pauses, her timing, her distance, or even the way she looks at you often tell a very different story. And that unspoken message is usually the real one. When you don't understand this, it's easy to fall into the trap of believing women are confusing, contradictory, or impossible to understand. They're not. In fact, human behavior, especially emotional behavior, follows patterns. The problem isn't that you're clueless. It's that you've been taught to listen to the wrong signals. This conversation isn't about blaming women or turning relationships into power struggles. It's about awareness. It's about the kind of emotional intelligence many men were never taught, lessons that should have been passed from father to son, but often weren't. Once you understand what drives her words, everything changes. The mixed signals stop feeling random. The silence no longer paralyzes you. You stop waiting for reassurance that may never arrive. Instead, you begin to move with self-respect, clarity, and direction, guided by your values, not by hope or confusion. That's the shift. From guessing to understanding. From reacting to leading your own life. And before we break down the first so-called lie and what it truly means, take a moment to support the message. Like the video, subscribe, and help grow a space where men learn to understand themselves, their worth, and the psychology behind the relationships they choose. Now, let's get into it. We'll start by breaking down the first, and perhaps the most common, lie. It sounds like compassion. It feels like mercy, but it lands like a quiet verdict. I'm not ready for a relationship right now. At first glance, this sentence looks polite, even considerate. It seems to say, it's not you, it's me. And that's exactly why it's so effective. It lowers your guard. It invites patience. It asks you to wait calmly at the station while no train is coming. Don't let that soft tone fool you. Because hidden inside this phrase is one missing clause. One small omission that changes everything. I'm not ready for a relationship with you. That is the real message. This is not about timing. This is not about healing. This is not about her career, her past, or her personal journey. Be clear. It is about desire. Attraction does not negotiate with calendars. It does not schedule itself for later. When genuine interest is present, obstacles shrink. Time bends. Energy appears. People move mountains quietly and without complaint. When a woman says she isn't ready, what she's actually signaling is this: the man I truly want hasn't arrived yet. And until he does, you are serving a different purpose. You are the emotional cushion, the warm conversation, the safe presence that keeps loneliness at bay. Many men fall into the same trap here. They interpret her words as a test, a challenge. They believe patience will be rewarded, that loyalty will ripen into passion if they just wait long enough. Don't do that. That is not patience. That is self-deception. Passion does not grow like money in a savings account. It doesn't earn interest over time. It arrives fully formed, or it doesn't arrive at all. As one thinker accurately noted, desire is instant. Hesitation is a sign. When a woman feels a real impulse, doubts evaporate, giving way to action. She will rewrite her schedule, cancel important plans, and find 1,000 opportunities to see you instead of looking for one excuse to keep her distance. Women never risk losing a man who excites them by playing not ready. Read that again. Slowly. If she wanted you, the idea of not now wouldn't survive the first spark. She would make time. Not someday. Today. People always find time for what moves them. So why doesn't she say the truth plainly? Because rejection is uncomfortable. Because social conditioning encourages softness over clarity. Because it feels easier to protect her image than to risk being seen as unkind. By wrapping rejection in gentle language, she avoids guilt. She walks away feeling reasonable. Meanwhile, you're left analyzing her words, wondering if you should wait, hoping something might change. That is how limbo is created. And limbo is expensive. Understand this. You are not the lead character in her love story. You're the waiting room, the place she rests until the right door opens. If you accept this role, you volunteer to become emotional storage, useful, familiar, and ultimately replaceable. Don't do that. Be honest with yourself. Be ruthless with your time. Time is the only resource you cannot replenish. Money returns. Energy recovers. Pride heals. Time does not come back. You must stop investing it in illusions that promise growth but deliver delay. This is not about bitterness. This is not about blame. This is about clarity. Good psychology tips don't ask you to harden your heart. They ask you to sharpen your perception. Real love advice doesn't encourage waiting for someone who has already decided. Choose dignity over hopes that has no foundation. Choose self-respect over uncertainty. Choose to walk away clean instead of staying confused. When someone wants you, you won't need to decode their words. You won't need to read between lines. Their actions will speak loudly and consistently. That is the standard. Remember this. Carry it with you. And don't confuse kindness with commitment. These are not just psychology tips. This is survival wisdom. This is love advice for men who value their lives. Be decisive. Be awake. And never wait where desire is absent. Let's move to the next trap. A lie capable of destroying a man not just financially, but mentally if he makes the mistake of taking it literally. Here is the hard truth you need to hear, delivered cleanly, calmly, and without illusion. When a woman says, "Money doesn't matter to me," she is not offering you permission to drift, stall, or abandon responsibility. She is testing whether you understand what money actually represents. And if you take that statement literally, you walk straight into a psychological trap that drains not just your finances, but your confidence, clarity, and edge in life. What she is really saying, without saying it, is this: money is not the goal. Direction is. Money is not the obsession. Competence is. Money is not the relationship. Stability is. Men who misread this message relax at the wrong moment. They lower their standards. They confuse emotional depth with the absence of structure. Experienced men never do that. They listen for meaning, not wording. Women don't bond to numbers. They respond to signals. And the signal she is scanning for is simple. Can this man build, sustain, and protect a shared future in the real world? Not in theory. Not in dreams. Under pressure. Because modern life is unforgiving. Bills arrive without emotion. Crises don't wait for readiness. Love without direction turns into stress faster than most men expect. As Peter Drucker said, the best way to predict the future is to create it. That quote matters here. Women are wired to feel calm beside men who are creating tomorrow instead of hoping for it. Men who move with intent. Plan with clarity. Treat responsibility as self-respect, not a burden. When she says happiness isn't in money, she is drawing a line between obsession and avoidance. She is not eliminating the need for progress. In her mind, money is not luxury. It is proof of momentum, evidence that you can absorb impact and keep moving. Psychology tips confirm this again and again. Attraction is built on perceived safety, not fantasy. And safety today is emotional, financial, and directional at the same time. Marcus Aurelius said, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Being one means you don't argue with reality. You master it. You don't chase approval. You generate trust through consistency. You don't hear "money doesn't matter" and decide effort doesn't matter either. Because stagnation is not simplicity. Stagnation is uncertainty. And uncertainty erodes connection quietly, relentlessly, until one day the bond feels thin and unexplained. The man is confused. The woman has already emotionally stepped away, not because she wanted wealth, but because she needed direction. Love advice grounded in real psychology tips points to one truth: women fall in love with trajectories, not snapshots. With men who are moving forward, not standing still waiting for conditions to improve. In modern life, where careers change, markets shift, and stability must be rebuilt, the man who wins is the man who adapts without panic, provides without bragging, and leads without announcing it. Leadership is felt, not declared. And when another man enters her awareness at work, socially, even briefly, who demonstrates execution, clarity, and results, the illusion that money doesn't matter collapses instantly. Not because she is shallow, but because competence is visible. And competence is calming. Warren Buffett said, "Risk comes from not knowing what you're doing. Nothing drains attraction faster than a man without direction." So here is the instruction. Hear her words. Respect her meaning, but never use her language as an excuse to abandon your mission, your growth, or your standards. Build your life as if responsibility is attractive, because it is. Cultivate skills, systems, and income as expressions of self-mastery, not desperation. Understand this clearly. Money is not your identity, but it is your footprint in the world. When you carry yourself like a man who can handle pressure, solve problems, and move forward regardless of conditions, you don't need to argue about what matters. Your presence answers the question. Love rewards momentum. Life rewards discipline. And men who master both don't fear hidden meanings. They understand them. They act accordingly. And they win quietly, consistently, and on their own terms. Let's move to the third lie, the one that sounds flattering, feels intoxicating, and quietly switches off your judgment before you realize what happened. I usually don't do this, but with you, it's different. Be careful. That sentence is not an emotional accident. It is a finely tuned trigger designed to flood your ego with excitement and make you feel selected, elevated, singled out from the crowd. Don't rush past that feeling. Sit with it. That rush is the point. When you hear it, you're meant to believe you've crossed a rare line, that something about you unlocked a door no one else could open, that you're not just another man, but the exception who rewrote the rules. That is the illusion. She is not confessing vulnerability. She is crafting a story. And in that story, you play the lead role, the man so compelling that long-standing boundaries suddenly soften and fade. That feels powerful. It feels validating. It feels like connection. But don't confuse sensation with truth. When someone announces their rules out loud, especially early, it's often not about principles at all. It's about preparing an explanation in advance. It's reputation management happening in real time. She knows how men think. She knows men admire restraint, but criticize openness. So she frames her behavior not as a choice, but as an exception caused by you. That way, she keeps her self-image intact while feeding your pride. You get the badge of honor. She keeps the halo. That is not romance. That is stage direction. Be honest with yourself. If the boundaries fall quickly, it's not because you are extraordinary. It's because those boundaries were never solid to begin with. Patterns matter more than promises. When something happens fast and feels familiar, it usually is. Names change. Faces change. Settings change. The pace doesn't. That is not fate. That is habit. You must understand this clearly. When someone truly doesn't usually do this, they simply don't do it. Not tonight. Not because of chemistry. Not because of a spark. Real values don't collapse on first contact. They don't need speeches. They don't need disclaimers. They show themselves through consistency, not explanation. Don't let your desire for meaning turn a performance into a bond. Many men mistake intensity for depth and novelty for intimacy. That confusion is costly. It makes you believe you've discovered something rare when you've actually stepped into something rehearsed. This is where psychology tips matter. The mind wants to feel special, chosen, different. And when that desire is activated, logic steps aside. That is why this line works so well. It flatters without promising. It excites without committing. It creates closeness without responsibility. The alert. This has nothing to do with you being unworthy or worthy. It has everything to do with how stories are used to manage perception. People protect how they want to be seen. That's human, but you don't have to buy into it. Don't let vanity write checks your future has to cash. Be grounded. Be observant. Be slow. Love advice that lasts is rarely dramatic. It's quiet. It's steady. It doesn't rush you into believing you've changed someone overnight. And here is the deeper point most men miss. The real trap is not her words, it's your interpretation. You want to believe you triggered transformation. You want to believe you're the exception. That belief feels powerful, but it blinds you. As psychology tips often remind us, projection is strongest when emotion runs high. You're not witnessing a rare revelation. You're witnessing a familiar script with a new audience. That doesn't make her cruel. It makes her human. And it doesn't make you foolish. It makes you hopeful. But hope needs discipline. Don't surrender your discernment for a compliment wrapped in mystery. If something feels too perfectly tailored to your ego, pause. If a connection needs immediate justification, question it. Real closeness doesn't announce itself. It unfolds. Remember this, and remember it well. Consistency is the only language that doesn't lie. Everything else is atmosphere. Don't confuse atmosphere with structure. Be calm. Be patient. Be precise. That is how you protect your time, your dignity, and your future. And that, more than any flattering line, is real power, real love advice, and real psychology tips worth keeping. Let's move to the fourth lie, the one that sounds harmless, the one that makes a man relax his shoulders and exhale. My ex means nothing to me. When a woman says this, many men hear hope. They imagine a clean slate, an open road, no shadows lurking behind the curtain. It feels like permission to step forward without fear. But stop right there, brother. Don't rush to celebrate. The human mind is not a trash can with a lid you can slam shut. It doesn't work like a delete button. Memories don't vanish on command, and feelings don't dissolve just because someone declared them irrelevant. Emotions don't disappear. They go underground. And underground, they change shape. They grow quieter, sharper, more strategic. From there, they begin to steer reactions, fears, and decisions without asking permission. So when she says, "My ex means nothing to me," very often she isn't lying to you. She's lying to the woman staring back from the mirror. That sentence is not a confession. It's a shield raised against pain, against anger she hasn't processed, against resentment that still hums under the surface, against questions she's not ready to answer. That is why the line sounds rehearsed. That is why it comes out a little too fast. That is why it carries force, but not peace. Ask yourself one simple, logical question. If he is truly turned to dust, why bring him up at all? True indifference is silent. It has no monologue. It doesn't need an audience. It's like a vacuum, empty, still, undramatic. When someone is genuinely done, they don't narrate it. They move on. But when his name keeps entering the room through mockery, comparisons, jokes, or subtle jabs, that is smoke. And smoke always points to a fire that hasn't gone out. Every time she resurrects him in conversation, she unknowingly invites him into your relationship. She pulls out a chair. She gives the ghost a seat of honor at your table. Now you're no longer two people trying to build something new. You're three. Here is where the danger becomes practical, not poetic. Mathematical. You cannot love someone into healing wounds you didn't cause. That is not romance. That is unpaid labor. When you step into this role, you are no longer an equal partner. You become a crisis desk, a repair station, a place where emotional debris gets dropped off after another man walked away. Be clear about this. You will spend your best energy fixing fractures you didn't create. You will invest patience where accountability should have lived. Slowly, without noticing, you will absorb the emotional residue of a story that was never yours. This is not about being kind. Kindness without boundaries is expensive. You don't become the hero of her new chapter. You become a temporary bandage, necessary only to stop the bleeding, useful only until the wound closes. And here comes the part no one likes to say out loud. When she finally stabilizes, often with your help, she may leave. Not because you failed, but because you succeeded. In her memory, you won't represent growth. You'll represent a season she outgrew, a time when she wasn't whole yet, a reminder of vulnerability she no longer wants to identify with. That is the quiet irony. Therapists are thanked. They are rarely chosen. Lives are built forward, not backward, and people rarely anchor themselves to what reminds them of unfinished chapters. So, what should you do when you hear this line? Don't argue. Don't interrogate. Don't try to prove anything. Switch to observation mode. Remember the wisdom often attributed to Alfred Adler: trust movement, not speeches. Watch actions. Watch patterns. Watch emotional reflexes. True healing doesn't announce itself. It shows up as calm, as neutrality, as the absence of a need to convince anyone. People don't speak about what is truly gone with intensity and repetition. They don't circle it. They don't revisit it. They don't decorate it with emotion. And if the past keeps wandering into your conversations, it hasn't left. It has only changed its costume. It has become an invisible third wheel, still influencing decisions, still setting rules, still shaping reactions. Don't fool yourself. As long as this phantom occupies mental real estate, you are not standing on solid ground. You are renting space in someone else's unresolved story. That is not love advice meant to scare you. That is clarity meant to protect you. Be honest with yourself. Be patient, but not blind. Be open, but not available for repair work you never signed up for. These are not accusations. They are psychology tips for men who value their time, their energy, and their future. Yes, relationships require compassion, but compassion does not mean self-erasure. Use psychology tips to read behavior, not just words. Use love advice that respects your role as a man, not a rescue mission. You must choose partnerships, not projects. Because as long as another man's shadow sits on the throne in her mind, there is no room for you to rule your own story. And you deserve a relationship where you are present by choice, not by replacement. The fifth lie is true kryptonite for decent men, throwing more guys off course than any other romantic illusion. I want a nice guy. Here is the deeper truth men need to hear, and it deserves to be delivered without hesitation, without apology, and without confusion, because this single misunderstanding has derailed more good men than almost any other romantic illusion in modern life. When a woman says, "I want a nice guy," she is not asking for a man who erases himself to make life easier for her. She is not asking for a man who avoids tension, swallows his opinions, or trades his spine for approval. She is definitely not asking for a man who mistakes passivity for virtue. What she is describing, often without realizing it, is a man who combines warmth with structure, empathy with self-respect, and kindness with an unshakable sense of direction. Attraction does not grow in comfort alone. It grows in polarity, in contrast, in emotional safety built on strength. As Friedrich Nietzsche warned, he who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow, and in relationships, that means a man with an internal compass will always outshine a man who simply reacts. Many men hear the word nice and rush to become agreeable, predictable, endlessly accommodating, believing that removing friction will create desire. It won't. Desire does not live in frictionless space. It lives in tension that feels safe, in boundaries that don't wobble, in a presence that stays calm even when emotions rise. This is one of the most overlooked psychology tips in modern dating. Women do not fall for men who hand over their authority at the door. They fall for men who lead their own lives so well that inviting her into it feels like a privilege, not a plea. Pedestal behavior is not romance. It is insecurity disguised as generosity. Admiration that is unearned feels hollow. Self-respect that is consistent feels solid. When she tests you, questions you, challenges you, or shifts emotional temperature, it is not manipulation. It is information gathering. She is asking, without words, is this man steady, or does he collapse under pressure? Too many men fail here, not because they lack heart, but because they confuse endless apology with emotional intelligence. Marcus Aurelius taught, you have power over your mind, not outside events, and that mindset is magnetic. A centered man does not argue with feelings. He acknowledges them without surrendering himself to them. Kindness without structure dissolves into noise. Kindness anchored in self-command becomes rare, valuable, and deeply attractive. This is critical love advice for men navigating modern relationships where emotional expression is encouraged but self-erasure is quietly punished. Being a nice guy, the way women actually mean it, is about being emotionally available without being emotionally governed, supportive without being submissive, open without being porous, decisive without being harsh. Modern life has blurred these lines, teaching men to equate leadership with control and compassion with compliance. The truth sits in the middle. Men who master this middle ground master their romantic lives. Passion is built on contrast, on knowing the man beside her can stand firm when storms arrive, not drift with every change in weather. Repeat this until it settles into your bones. She does not want a man who disappears for peace. She wants a man who remains present through tension. She does not want endless agreement. She wants grounded confidence. She does not want to be managed. She wants to feel protected by consistency. The victory comes when you understand this. The most powerful form of kindness is self-respect in action. This is not performance. It is identity. Once you internalize it, dating stops feeling confusing and starts feeling intentional. You stop chasing approval. You start offering presence, direction, and clarity. Remember this final psychology tip. Be warm, but remain solid. Be generous, but remain selective. Be open, but remain anchored. When you master yourself, relationships stop feeling like a battlefield and start feeling like territory you already own. That is love advice that turns men into leaders of their own lives, not passengers in someone else's emotional world. And finally, we arrive at the sixth and final lie, the most polished one, the most modern one, and the one aimed directly at the quiet hopes many men carry without admitting it. I'm not like other girls. At first glance, this line feels refreshing, almost soothing, like a cool drink after a long walk through emotional sameness, and it whispers the promise that you have finally found an exception in a world that often feels repetitive. But don't be fooled. This sentence is not a mirror of reality. It is a sales pitch, carefully designed to slide past your guard and press the exact psychological buttons that make you want to believe before you verify. Men, especially those with life experience, are often hungry for authenticity and difference, and she knows this. She knows that by positioning herself as rare, she invites you to stop asking questions and start filling in the blanks with your own hopes, and that is where many psychology tips begin to matter. Because the moment you suspend critical thinking, you stop observing behavior and start buying a story. Burn this into your mind. People who are genuinely different never need to announce it. They don't wave a banner. They don't ask for special treatment. They simply live, and their actions speak long before their words do. The instant someone declares they are not like the others, what often leaks through is not confidence, but anxiety, a quiet fear of being seen as ordinary, of blending into the background, of not standing out without verbal framing. Don't rush to judge, but don't rush to believe either. Be calm. Be observant. That is where real love advice starts, not in slogans, but in patience. This phrase is often an attempt to preempt reality, to shape your perception before time and consistency have the chance to do their work, because deep down, there is an understanding that actions alone may not yet support the claim. You must understand this clearly. Genuine self-awareness does not need aggressive positioning. It is study. It is unforced. The irony is subtle but powerful because those who insist most loudly on being different often follow the same patterns as everyone else, only wrapped in slightly better packaging, a smoother tone, a more intriguing presentation. The difference you think you see is not in values, not in character, but in how skillfully the image is sold. Don't confuse presentation with substance. Don't confuse mystery with depth. Be precise. Be slow. True rarity shows up quietly, in consistency when no one is watching, in loyalty when circumstances are inconvenient, in how someone behaves when emotions run high and no reward is guaranteed, and in how respectfully they speak about others who are absent and unable to defend themselves. That is not something you can fake for long, and that is why it is never advertised. Uniqueness does not need a tagline. It does not need comparison. It stands alone without explanation. When you hear this line, don't fall into the trance of exclusivity. Take one step back. Breathe. Observe patterns, not promises. Ask yourself, without bitterness and without fantasy, does the daily behavior align with the story being told, or are you being offered a carefully crafted imitation designed to appeal to a hopeful buyer? This is not cynicism. This is clarity. This is self-respect. And this is where psychology tips become practical tools rather than abstract ideas, because awareness protects you from disappointment without hardening your heart. Be open, but be grounded. Be interested, but be discerning. Love advice is not about suspicion. It is about alignment between words and reality. And when you learn to trust patterns instead of phrases, you stop chasing illusions and start recognizing substance. And here lies the invisible thread connecting all six of these phrases into one clear pattern. They are shortcuts, verbal keys meant to unlock trust before trust is earned. Once you see that, you don't need to argue, attack, or retreat. You simply slow down, keep your standards intact, and let reality reveal itself in its own time. Because what is real never needs to rush you, never needs to convince you, and never needs to announce how different it is. After walking through all of these so-called harmless phrases, the most important thing you should take away is not suspicion and not bitterness. What you need is awareness. Because the deepest wounds men carry in relationships rarely come from obvious betrayal. They come from long-term misunderstanding words, misreading signals, and most of all, misunderstanding their own position in the story. These phrases are not proof that women are bad or intentionally deceptive. They reflect something very human. People want connection, safety, and a positive self-image. But there is another truth that matters just as much. If you do not learn to read behavior instead of language, you will keep investing your time, energy, and self-worth in places that were never built to hold you. Healthy, mature love does not require guessing. It does not trap you in waiting rooms filled with hope and confusion. It does not ask you to shrink, stall, or suspend your life for now. When someone genuinely wants you, you feel clarity, not anxiety. You experience consistency, not mixed signals. You are chosen deliberately, not kept around for comfort or convenience. At the core of every lesson here is not women, it is the man you choose to become. A man with direction does not cling to ambiguity. A man with self-respect does not compete for affection. A man with internal discipline does not trade his future for temporary emotional relief. Remember this, you do not need to be cold, detached, or emotionally closed to be respected. You only need to be clear with yourself. Clear about what you allow. Clear about what you refuse. Clear about the fact that your time is finite, and wasting it on uncertainty is a cost you will never recover. When you live as a man with structure, values, purpose, boundaries, you stop arguing with words. Reality speaks for itself. The right woman steps forward with certainty. The wrong one fades without drama. No chasing, no resentment, no confusion. This is not advice meant to make you fear love. It is guidance meant to help you enter love with open eyes. To lead with warmth, but stand on reason. To feel deeply, but decide wisely. To trust emotions, but give final authority to patterns and actions. Once you internalize this, manipulation loses its power. Flattery no longer blinds you. Promises no longer outweigh proof. You move slower, stronger, and more intentionally. You stop waiting to be chosen and start choosing with dignity. And that is the real shift. Not learning how to decode women, but learning how to honor yourself. Because the man who understands his worth does not fear hidden meanings. He recognizes them. He responds with clarity. And he walks forward on his own terms. All right, brother, before we part ways, listen closely. Women are not your enemies. They speak from emotion, instinct, and feeling. That's not wrong. But it does mean you must stop judging words alone. Words are easy. Energy, actions, and consistency never lie. A wise man doesn't argue. He doesn't chase clarity in chaos. He observes. He stays still while emotions move around him. Like a lighthouse in a storm, calm, grounded, unmoved. So here's the advice: stop reacting. Start reading reality. Watch what she does. Notice the pauses. Feel the shift in effort. And when something doesn't align with your standards, don't complain, don't explain. Simply choose differently. Your silence is strength. Your standards are protection. Your self-control is power. If any of this opened your eyes, go down to the comments. Tell us which phrase you've heard and whether it led to a win or a hard lesson. Both make you sharper. And before you go, take decisive action. Like the video, subscribe. Stay with the Blessing of Stoicism channel. We're building men who don't beg for love, but lead. Men who don't react, but decide. Stay steady. Stay sharp. See you in the next one.